Okay, let's bring her in. She is a writer, an actor, a producer, and a creator. She's starring in the film Him, which was just released about a week and a half ago on Apple TV and Amazon. First time on the podcast, it is Tess Higgins. Tess, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. So pumped to be here.
I described you in the open as a writer, an actor, a producer, and a creator. However, as I was doing a little homework on you, and I saw on your UCB page, your bio says, the last thing it says in your bio is Bachelor Nation Scholar. So now I want to dive into this with you. It sounds like you are a huge Bachelor Nation fan. When did this start? Do you remember the first season you watched? Do you have a favorite season? Where did the Bachelor Nation Scholar career start for Tess Higgins?
Well, so it's funny. My brother was actually the first person who started watching the show. He was in a frat at MIT, and they had pasta Alfredo nights, and he was the commissioner of his Bachelor Fantasy League. And my mom knew that he would text back quicker if she texted him during Bachelor, because she knew that he'd be on his phone. So she started watching it because of him. And then I was on a trip with my parents. My mom was like, well, we have to get back from dinner by 8 because Rachel Lindsay's season of The Bachelor starts tonight. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it with you. And then my life kind of changed. And I found out about Bachelor Reddit. And I started, reading all the different tell-all books, listening to podcasts. And it just became this like really fascinating ecosystem to me. And I know too much now.
So it started with Rachel Lindsay? That was your first one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was, but the first one I really dove into was Ari's season. Rachel's felt like a casual kind of like, oh, like this show is fun. And then Ari was like when I discovered Reddit, and actually when I saw your spoilers for the first time too. So.
Sorry if I spoiled it for you. I didn't know if you were into the spoilers or not. If you want to know things.
It was great. For that season, it was fun to know. So
yeah. Okay. So it's interesting because this film, which came out about a week and a half ago, it's called Him. And I did not realize you wrote this, and it was a play 4 years ago. And then you and your writing partner got the funding to make it into a movie. So again, was it just this fandom that you were just like, I want to write something that's in the vein of The Bachelor, but I want it to show it from the contestant's perspective, which we'll get into him in a second. But just the idea that you came up with this and decided to write this yourself, how long did it take you to write?
Yeah, so it started out as a play that I wrote in 2018, kind of right after Ari's season, because that was kind of, I think, what inspired it. And then we did a developmental reading of it at a theater in DC. I come from a theater background. And so does Rebecca, who directed this film. We've been doing theater together since like 2016 at this point. And I was in the DC area. Theater did a developmental reading of it. And then COVID happened. And I kind of just like didn't really think about it again until she was in her MFA program and was like, hey, do you remember that play you wrote about reality TV? I think it might make a good movie. So then we adapted it into a screenplay together over probably the course of 6 months to a year, I guess. But it's been a very long journey.
Yeah, I was going to say, because here we are in 2025 and it just came out. Yeah. This is something that was an idea of yours in 2018, which, I got to believe, obviously, you're super proud of that. The fact that it got to screen, in Sedona, what was the Sedona festival that it won things for?
So that was the first festival we played at. In all of 2024, I think we did like 10 film festivals, and we did get some awards for our amazing cast at festivals in Richmond, Virginia, and Cape Cod, and Michigan. So yeah, it was fun. People got to see it like infrequently over the course of a year, but now anyone can watch it. So
yeah. So when I watched it, it's really a good depiction. I know that a lot of my fan base and a lot of people that follow Bachelor Nation were really enthralled with the TV show Unreal. And it's kind of in that vein where it's kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes of what's really happening. However, this was a little bit different in that Unreal really did focus on the producers and the creator of that show, whereas this focuses on the 5 women left on a Bachelor type show, and they find out a secret about the Bachelor. I don't want to the spoiler guy doesn't want to spoil it for anybody that still wants to watch it. But yeah, it is. So that's where we're at. And there's really only, it was funny because I was looking at the end, there's only 8 people in this whole movie, in the cast. When I was looking at it, I was like, wait, there was really only the 5 women, 2 producers, and then I'm forgetting his name because it was a really weird name for The Bachelor.
Oh, Dave.
Zabe.
Well, no, Zabe was the Bachelor doesn't have a name. Zabe was the head producer. Yeah.
Okay. See, the thing is, now that you tell me that, as I'm watching it, I'm like, wait, because you kept talking about Zabe, but I thought Zabe was the actual Bachelor you were referring to, because we never see this Bachelor.
No. Well, that's why it's called him, is because it doesn't really matter who he is. It could be any
it doesn't
guy.
matter who he is. It's about you and your journey and the 5 women that are left. And you're one of, obviously, the 5 women. And I got to ask you, because you're such a fan of the show, and when you wrote this and then when you were putting the movie together, did you correspond with any former contestants for insight or input into this, or no?
Not directly, but I had just read so much and like listened to so many podcasts and stuff. I mean, I loved Amy Kaufman's book, Bachelor Nation, had a lot of interviews with former producers and things like that. And I felt Colton's book had some like really interesting tidbits as well, kind of about how certain things were produced. And so, we kind of talk about like the things that we depict in the film. It's almost like how Margaret Atwood wrote Handmaid's Tale. Nothing happens to women in Handmaid's Tale that hasn't happened at some point in some oppressive regime in history. And there's really nothing that happens in this film that hasn't been documented somewhere happening. Even one of the more like, plot points that I thought like, I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. It found out later, like Pilot Pete admitted to like, having a device on the show. And I was like, oh, all right, there we go. Yeah. Like, I'm good. Everything's happened.
Yeah. I mean, it is very, very accurate. And I think people that when you watched Unreal, had you seen Unreal before you started writing this? I can't remember what years Unreal was on.
I think it was like, I remember watching that in college. And so I think I remember watching that, but before I was even into The Bachelor, like I'd watched Unreal before that.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was before. Yeah. Because, thinking about it off the top of my head, I'm like, gosh, when did Unreal air? And it must have been 9-10 years ago. And it's just crazy.
I think so.
I feel like it was 5, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So this idea for him comes about, and the women that you got, the 5 women that are left on this, quote unquote season of The Bachelor. Was this like was this an open casting call? Or are these women you've worked with in the past? How did it work to cast the other 4 women?
Yeah. So, almost all of them were people that we had worked with in the past. Sydney, who plays Savannah, went to college with me. Kira, who plays Jenna, was, in a play with me, went to college with Rebecca. Margaret, who plays Claire, is one of my like childhood friends. Like we're all from Virginia, which is kind of crazy, but we all have pursued, theater and film and entertainment. And so it was fun to kind of write those characters, knowing like who was going to be playing them and like lean into those sensibilities a little bit. Lucy, who plays Adrian, the college dropout, was the only person that, we didn't know out of the 5. And we did do kind of a big like, casting call on Actors Access, which is kind of like the big website that all shows and things get cast through. And we had like 2,000 submissions, which was crazy, like for an indie film. Yeah. And, we went through all those headshots, and then we picked like 20 people to do a tape. And Rebecca and I saw hers, and we agreed right away. We were like, oh, yeah, it's her. So
interesting.
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
I can't say, look, I'll be honest. I can't say I've watched a lot of indie films in my life. And I feel bad saying that, because I know that the indie films need support of everybody out there. But you guys with this also got to partner with Nick Thompson, who's been on this podcast before. People that don't know his story. He was on Love is Blind. I can't remember if it was season 1 or 2, but he has started the Ukan Foundation, was the unscripted cast advocacy network. And it is something that to where this film really plays into what Nick has been all about when he's been promoting Ukan. And just talk about that in getting involved with Nick and with Ukan, and how you feel the Ukan Foundation is helping reality TV contestants.
I love everything that Nick is doing and everything that Ukan stands for. I think, the more I delved into this ecosystem of reality TV, the more like kind of weird I felt about it. It feels like eating junk food, where you're like, like I love eating chips so much, but wouldn't it be nice if they made chips with like avocado oil instead of like the bad oil, And I think that's kind of, what a lot of like what Nick's work comes down to is like giving people resources, like having the ability to fully understand your contracts, the ability to have mental health support. I mean, I even think like everybody should be paid. I've been going back and watching old seasons of Survivor, and I can't believe like, Boston Rob is this iconic person. He's not getting a cent of me going back on Paramount Plus and watching that. And he should, the same way that like Jennifer Aniston is getting money, people watching old episodes of Friends, Yeah. Because they are kind of still doing work. They are doing entertainment. And so I really think that, it's helpful to have some kind of entity like what Nick does to start getting these ideas out there, because I don't think they're talked about enough. And I think that the better you treat the people who participate on these shows, like the better your show is going to be, because people will want to be there and work with you. So,
and then what I also want to add is, for people who do rent this or buy this on Apple TV or Amazon, part of the proceeds go to the Ukan Foundation, correct?
That was for pre-sale period, which is over now. But yes. But right. You're still supporting Nick if you're supporting us. So.
Yeah. So there was something in that. There's 2 lines that I wrote down from the movie that I was just like, this really nails it, at least for me, because I have spoken to numerous contestants after their seasons have been over, and just some I've become friends with, and I've heard all the stories. I've heard every single thing that has been happened behind the scenes on this show. One of the scenes, and they both involve you, is you're at the kitchen table and a producer is talking to you, and a producer is trying to get something out of you, and you're being a little hangry at that point, and you say, and the producer says to you, if you shit talk her, I will find a way to get you a pizza, because you were just dying for a pizza. And then you're like, deal, because you were not giving in at all, but he wanted you to talk shit about another contestant in the confessional. And he says that to you, and I'm like, that's exactly. Now, I don't know. I'm sure that line has been said in the Bachelor lore over 50 seasons, but it's just the idea of, hey, if you do this for me, I will grant you. The things that I've heard are they'll let you go to sleep. You have to give them what they want in a confessional, or else they're not letting you go to bed. They're not letting you eat. Like, this one was just an incentive, like, oh, you want that pizza? You talk shit about her, I'll get you that pizza. So it was a really, really good line. And I'm sure you got that from just listening to podcasts, reading books, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I even just the one that like sticks out to me is, I remember, I can't remember who said it, but that they were offered music to listen to on the plane.
Yeah.
If they did that, because you don't have your phone. And even just the thought of like, they're flying really far away sometimes, to be on a flight with no phone, no music, no nothing, like no book, maybe even. You might do it. You might start talking shit, if you're like, I'm desperate to feel some sense of normalcy. So yeah.
When you wrote that, and when I saw that line, I was like, oh, that's a good line, because I know that happens. Maybe not pizza, but like you said, an incentive to get you, because people are just like, why do these women talk shit on the other women? And it's like, look, it's almost, I've said this so many times, when you go on this show, you kind of got to play the game. And if you don't play the game and you don't give producers what they want, you're probably going home. It's just the way it is. It's just, they need sound bites. They need characters, quote unquote. And if they try and, give you leading questions to get you to go a certain way on another contestant, and you're just not taking the bait, it's just, in their minds, it's like, why are we keeping them around? Unless the Bachelor really has her as one of his front runners, there's no reason to keep her around anymore. She's not giving us anything. And it's a really, really weird thing. And I think the dynamic has changed over the years, because I think now a lot of contestants see that I don't want to be the one shit talking, because I'm going to get so much heat online. And I'm going to get so much, people are going to be commenting, sending me DMs, writing in my comment section of my Instagram, oh my God, you were such a bitch last night. I can't believe you said that about so-and-so. And I think people are really scared nowadays to do that. This movie tackles it where these women really have no filter. And I don't want to give away the main premise of what happens. People need to watch it themselves. The other thing that happened to you in the movie that I thought was like, okay, was another trick that I know producers use, which is either to get a woman to cry or to get her to just crash out. And so they're interviewing you in the backyard. You're freezing your ass off, which is funny because I know that's happened in other seasons as well. And they don't let them wear a jacket. And the producer is asking you questions behind the camera saying, do you think you will ever be loved? And then that like almost triggers something in your head where you're just like, whoa. And then your character essentially crashes out at that point, which was another like, okay, I know you got that from probably reading and listening to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
That was, I mean, when you did that whole crashing out scene, how hard was it? Was it difficult for you to do that? Were you just like, I just need to, how do you get to that point when you know it's not real?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all just kind of about, finding like what's relatable to you. I've never been on a reality television show, but I've definitely, in dating situations and stuff, you might think to yourself, like, why isn't something working out for me right now? And maybe you've had those kinds of thoughts. And I think that's what I think is so fun about my character in this film, is that she is the kind of person who would be easy to make the villain. She's loud and kind of annoying, but the reason she's loud and annoying is because she's quite insecure about like what she has to offer, like, and if she's worthy of like being in a relationship. And I think that scene does a really good job of like showing you how someone can be this like a boisterous kind of like, maybe like Corinne or Crystal level type person, but they're just as human as everybody else. And they also think like, what if I never find somebody? Like, what if nobody ever loves me, and when you haven't had your pizza yet, you've been kept up all night, it's 20 degrees outside and they're not letting you wear your coat. And then they ask you that, you might crash out. Like I probably would too. And I know that that's a scene that, we had a screening in LA last night, and Nick referenced that scene as the female producer says to me, like, this is your love story. You just got to treat it like one. And he was like, that was said to me all the time, to the point where I started repeating it myself. And so, I think that whole getting you to question whether you deserve love. And this show is going to give you your answer on that, is like a big way of like, breaking through people kind of psychologically.
Well, your Bachelor villains naming Corinne and Crystal.
Yes, of course.
You're on it there. What's interesting is that along those same lines, the producer ones that I've heard getting women to cry, I mean, they will literally insult you. They'll say you look bad, you look ugly in your dress. There's other women there that look more attractive than you. How can you think that you will ever, why would you even think he would be interested in you the way you look tonight? A couple of the other ones were, have you heard the dog one? Or the grandma one, the dead dog, the dead grandma one? They've used that.
Oh, where they like talk about
like, oh, your grandma just passed. Boy, would she be disappointed in you, not being able to find love at your age. And it, gets the women to cry. And then that's when they roll the cameras and stuff like that. So it's along those same lines. And it's cruel and it's funny because a lot of the women a lot of the producers of this show, a lot of contestants have said either publicly, the frustrated contestants, the one that speak out against production, have always said, one of the most famous lines is, I can't believe these people can basically put their head down on their pillow at night. Like, how do these people sleep at night knowing what they are doing to us? And, I don't want to give away the main plot point of him, but there is a major turn that happens that how do I say it without giving it away? I'm not going to give it away, but it's the main plot point that we find out maybe, I don't know, 40 minutes in or something like that. Maybe it's a little bit earlier, but it's a really good twist. I didn't see it coming. I knew there would be a twist. I just didn't know what it was. And I was like, okay, what is going to happen here? And then, the thing about him, at least that resonated with me, is, like you said, you all knew each other. And I think that shows in the movie, to be honest with you. Like, there was a really good chemistry between the five of you that I was like, man, did they just find 5 stray women actresses that just happened to connect on this set? Or they had to have known each other. And you said 4 of the 5 of you had worked together, right?
Yeah. And everyone got along really well. Everyone's like still quite close. And so that definitely like showed on screen too, I think. So.
How long was the shoot? How long did it take to do this?
15 days.
15 days?
Yeah. Which is not enough time, but we did it.
So. But you did it. And, when I was looking at your background, I mentioned it in the beginning because it was in your profile for UCB. You're part of the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is is it comedy or is it just improv? Or is it both?
It's improv, comedy, sketch. I was on a team that performed regularly last year. Haven't done a lot of improv since we made this. But yeah, I love UCB. Full of great people.
I was going to say, do you have, when you look at something is like Saturday Night Live something that would always be a goal for you, being someone from UCB? Because I know a lot of people come from improv classes. Is that something that's in that you would like to do, or is it more you want to be in feature films?
That's not for me. That's also like, I never did sketch.
You never did sketch.
SNL is always sketch. Improv is, there's no script in improv, which makes it a little bit easier, I think.
But you did for UCB. So you've done that. How many years did you do it?
I did like 1 year on a team at UCB, but I've been doing improv for like 10 years at this point. But I always knew that was something that, like, when I did move to LA, it was always a goal of mine to perform there and work with people there. And it was like a really incredible experience. So,
yeah, no, I can imagine. Like, that is, improv. I've been to a couple shows in the past, one here in Dallas, and I can't remember the name of the group here in Dallas that did it, but I kind of marvel at it because, you throw out a topic to the audience and you guys can do a whole scene around it. And I'm like, how? That's pretty impressive. That's not easy to do. That's way easier, like you said, to memorize a script, right? And for you to do improv, like to do it for 10 years, like that is really impressive. I give you a lot of credit for that. With him, I wanted to go back to the movie real quick. With him, you mentioned working with all the other women. You've worked with him in the past, and the chemistry was great. Where did you come up with the storyline, not for the main twist, but the side twist with Jenna, right? Jenna.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You can, and if you want to give it away, you can. Just that part.
Yeah. So part of the film, you find out that one of the contestants kind of knows one of the producers already, and she's kind of been hiding it. Like, she knows him from another time in her life.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be really interesting to explore, because she, this is a film that's very like ensemble based, there kind of are like 5 main women characters essentially, but we see things primarily through this main character of Jenna, her perspective. And she's kind of the person you might see on a reality show who feels like they're not getting a lot of screen time. You kind of wonder why they're there. They're like a bit of a floater. They're not really saying anything too controversial or crazy. Like, maybe they're not getting kissed or things like that, but they're still there, and I thought that would be a really interesting person to see the story through, because that you don't see the story through that person's eyes when you watch a show like The Bachelor. And what is the person thinking who isn't getting the attention, isn't getting the special treatment? How do they feel about themselves, especially if they are a really insecure person around love and relationships? And how much crazier would it be if, there was someone essentially from home there at the same time. And I think that also makes it a little, more relatable too, in the sense that, I don't think a lot of people can relate to being on a reality show, but I think a lot of people can relate to like, your first love, or like, what was your college boyfriend like, or something like that, and I really enjoy their chemistry too. We found Kyle on TikTok. He's amazing, a great actor. And he does a lot of funny stuff on the internet. And I don't want to give too much away, but that's a really fun part of the story too.
So when I was watching it, and look, the only thing I knew going into it was about the 5 women remaining on a parody reality dating show similar to The Bachelor. But for some reason, I was thinking that we were going to see the last few episodes of a season play out. Like, I thought there was going to be some sort of rose ceremony, elimination ceremony, and one of you was going to go home, and then we're going to go from there, and then we're going to be down to 4, and we were going to see some sort of hometowns. Like, I thought that's what we were doing, but then I realized about 40 minutes in, no, we're never getting past this stage. This is going to be an 80-minute movie, which is what it is. So it's 80 minutes, and it's just the 5 of you coming to a realization about something that is brought to your attention, and then figuring out what to do from there. So that was a little bit of a twist for me. I thought it was going to be kind of similar to Unreal, where we actually saw eliminations and then getting to the end of a show. And then I realized 40 minutes in, wait, we haven't even seen the Bachelor guys, so there's no way they're going to show a hometown dates. And you're like, that's why it's called Him, Steve.
But I think, that's a twofold kind of thing. There's a practical reason for that, and then there's also like a artistry reason for that, right? The practical reason is it's an indie film, and it started as a play, and plays usually are start to finish. That's the whole thing just moves. It takes place over the course of one night, and it's a lot easier to film that than it is something that has a lot of different places and times. But the story reason for that is that the fun of it is, this is all the stuff you would see when the cameras are turned off, or when people are supposed to be asleep. And on a normal reality show, they'd probably have more cameras in the room. Like, they probably wouldn't be able to get away with the stuff that happens in our film, and it's my film, I get to make up, so they didn't have cameras there. And we wanted to see what happens when they're being themselves and not performing for a camera, because that is what we're used to seeing. And
I think that's what the audience kind of clamors for. We'll never see it. I mean, some people say back in the day, The Bachelor doesn't even do it anymore, and The Bachelorette doesn't do it anymore, where after the rose ceremony ends and after they show the previews for the following week, they used to show not outtakes, but they used to show a funnier, lighthearted moment, even though they were on film. Yeah. And everybody used to say the last minute of the show was almost the best part, because it's yes, they're being filmed and they know they're being filmed, but they're doing funnier stuff and they're not being so serious. Yeah. And that's kind of been my thing with the show, is it just takes itself a little bit too seriously. And your movie, this movie, Him, you get to see what kind of happens behind the scenes. And I guarantee former contestants that watch this will be like, yeah, this is a better depiction of what kind of really goes on when the cameras aren't on us, and the kind of real conversations we are having with the other women about, do you really like him, or are you just along for the ride here? And you guys address that in this. I think it's really, really well done. I just wanted to commend you again for that. Really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was, again, I kind of wrote it after watching Ari's season. And I remember when they announced Becca as the Bachelorette, and she was sitting on the couch, and all the girls were out there hugging her on the couch. Yeah. And Chris Harrison said oh, all the guys on your season are going to have to compete with that. And she said, yeah, I did find love here. And that is when it really clicked for me. I was like, they were all dating the same guy. Some of them were fighting each other at the time. And now they're all sitting here being screw Ari, girls rule. And I was like, we should have a story about that. So.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember. Did I ask you this in the beginning? How long did it take you to write this?
The play version, it took like maybe like 3 or 4 months. I was really bored one summer and got it done. But writing into a film script that you actually are intending to produce, involving multiple drafts. We had like 2, I think, kind of read-throughs. We did like one on Zoom with actors like during COVID, and then we did another one in person, because then you can hear things out loud and hear, people's feedback and kind of change things up. It used to be 120 pages and we cut like 40 pages. So and it's at the point too where I'm like, I don't even know what was in those other pages because it didn't really matter. It didn't need to be in the movie. So it does. I mean, I would say it took about like a year to really get it to the place where we wanted it to be. So.
Well, what's funny is you mentioned, it being an indie film, and then you saying it, took the whole shoot took 15 days. And then I'm thinking back to, well, Steve, there was no way you were going to do 4 hometown dates and, travel to 4 different locations. I mean, I guess you could have shot anywhere and made it seem like it was 4 different places, but now it doesn't. And now it makes a hell of a lot more sense why this is all done. Literally, it's over the course of one night. Like it is one night in a quote unquote Bachelor villa. Let's pronounce it. Let's make sure we say it right. In the villa, you'll get the joke when you see the movie. But yeah, I mean, it is really well done and a really good depiction of the behind the scenes of a reality dating show. Very, very similar to The Bachelor, but different than Unreal in that Unreal literally followed from beginning to end of a Bachelor season. This is a one night thing. And like I said, major twist that happens. And then you guys have to make a decision of what you guys want to do. Excellent stuff. Tess, I wanted to ask you, going forward, what is your next project? Are you working on something right now? Are you in something? Tell people where they could possibly see you next.
I am writing away on some other things. I've decided to kind of like stay in my lane and keep writing things that feel within the reality world or like pop culture adjacent. So a couple things in development right now. I'm also I somehow became a TikToker. I talk about reality all the time on TikTok. It feels like a full-time job now. Like I'm like, I have to make sure I watch every episode of Love Island. If I don't post on time, I'm late. So if you want to, hear me talk about all that kind of stuff,
what is your TikTok? What's your TikTok handle?
Tess D Higgins.
Tess D Higgins. Okay. And so now I got to ask you, what else are you watching right now besides Love Island in terms of reality shows? Like, what are your favorites?
Oh my gosh. Well, this whole past year, my hyperfixation has been Survivor. I had never watched it before.
Really?
But I really liked The Traitors. And a friend of mine started watching Survivor last year, and she was like, I know how you are about The Bachelor, Love is Blind, all those shows. She was like, you need to get into this. And I did, like, over winter break, and now I've watched like 10 seasons. I got Paramount Plus just to watch old stuff, and I think it's so fun. I'm totally obsessed with Survivor, and it's made me like, I read Emily Nussbaum's book, Cue the Sun, about the history of reality TV, and there was a whole chapter on Survivor, and that was like, oh, I need to tune into this. But I also love, me and my boyfriend are watching Drag Race All Stars, which is also super fun. Very different, these competition shows rather than like the love and dating shows, which I think are a little more digestible sometimes. You feel less bad about watching Drag Race than you do seeing someone like Jen suffer on her season of The Bachelorette. So.
Did you ever get into Temptation Island or no?
No, I haven't watched it, but I know people were really talking about it this year. And it was just when it was like Love is Blind, Bachelor, all those shows are on. And I was like, I can't add one more. I'm going to go crazy. But maybe one day I'll go back in.
Okay, so you're no on Temptation Island, you haven't seen Love is Blind? You ever watch any of that?
Oh, no, I do watch. I love Love is Blind, yeah.
Okay, so you like that one.
Yeah.
What about, what's the one that just slipped out? Oh, are you a Big Brother fan?
I've never watched Big Brother.
Never watched Big Brother. Okay.
I think I might like it. It is in the CBS Survivor family. So,
one
day when I finish all 50 Survivor seasons.
I was going to say, are you going to try and do it?
I am. My friend did it. She finished all of them in a year. So
see, I'm a huge Survivor fan. I've seen every season. I've watched it from the beginning. It's my all-time favorite reality show. Season? I was just about to say, the crazy thing about me is I've seen every season of Survivor, yet my memory retention is so poor on, like, I know winners, but if you were to say, what season did Danny Boatwright win? I'd be like, shit, I don't remember. But I know who Ben Higgins chose. I know who every Bachelor chose.
Yeah.
It's probably because I just watch Survivor for 2 hours or an hour and a half every Wednesday night, and then I don't think about it. I don't go on message boards and talk about it all week long. And I guess it's just, my memory retention is terrible. It's just really, really bad. And it's just amazing. Like when I saw the cast list for season 50, and I saw some of the pre-season 40, the pre-new era people that were cast, I'm like, yeah, I remember them, but I can't tell you like what their main thing was and why did they cast them? Like outside of the really big names like Ozzy,
Suri,
Ozzy and Suri absolutely know who they are. But someone like, I'm blanking right now, but there are some that I was just like, really? They're worthy of season 50. So, no shot at them, but it's absolutely my favorite show. I love it just because of the social, the social dynamic of it and where we are as a society and I just like the gameplay aspect of it where your fate is determined by people that you vote out and they determine. So you have to trick them enough to vote them out, but not have them pissed off enough at you to where they wouldn't vote for you in the end. And I find that fascinating. It's a really interesting way to go about it. And Big Brother is basically Big Brother's the same way. You got to vote people out, and that ultimately determine your fate. So yeah, I don't know have you started in order or you just picked 10 seasons to watch?
I've been going off the list. My friend, she made one for me, so I've been going in order. But I mean, I loved the David versus Goliath season. The one that Tony won. Like,
you say David versus Goliath, and I'm like, I watched every episode. I can't tell you. I don't even remember who won it. Like
that was the Mike White season, the White Lotus guy. That was his season.
Okay, and then who won it? I'm already forgetting who won Mike White's season.
Guy named Nick, who is certainly not as memorable as Mike White. So.
The Nick was he a lawyer with that guy?
Yeah, and he was like from the South. Yeah.
Yeah. God, he was the one that won David versus Goliath.
I know.
See, I knew he won a season, but I never would have put that, and I didn't realize Mike White was that season. But we will be seeing Mike on season 50. So
we will.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a great show. I'm glad you're 10 seasons at only 40 more to knock out.
Only 40 more to go.
Yeah. But I would think. I mean, I don't know at what pace you're watching it, but I would think if you could get the other, 39, if you can get the other 39 done before 50 airs next spring of 2026, you'll be good to go. Cause then you'll have a backstory on basically all the pre-merge, pre-era people. Of the 10 that you've watched, how many have been post or in the new era, post 40?
Just 46, 47, 48. So most of what I've watched has been old era. Yeah.
Okay. So when you watch the old era and compare it to the new era, you see the big difference, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
There's some differences. I'm like, oh, I missed that. Like I miss like the visit from home. Like that's always my favorite episode. Or also just how long they're there for.
Yeah.
But then there's some stuff, especially when you're watching stuff from like 2004 or whatever. And you see the way that like,
it's not even
are talked about, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, no one would ever say this today.
Oh yeah.
But but I do love it.
Yeah, no, and the early seasons, like not even being in HD, it's just weird to look at something like that. But yeah, 46, 47, 48, it is a different game. 39 days versus 26 is, 2 weeks out there with no food is definitely different, but glad you're watching. And if you can finish the other 39 seasons before spring of 2026, do you think you can do it?
Yeah.
Is that your goal?
I would love to.
Yeah, no, it would be a lot to do, but I guarantee you'd have a much better appreciation for 50. I believe you'll see, you'll notice, you'll know people's backstories, and seeing season 50, it's like, it's going to be interesting because so many of these people have been on each other's podcasts. They know each other. They meet at events. So you're like, now you're having, because in the new era, we haven't had one season where anybody that went on the show knew somebody. So now you're just like, wait a second. Are these, these pre-alliances going in? Are they just going to target people? Like, how is this going to work? So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. Anyway, Tess, I really appreciate you coming on. First time. Loved having you on. The movie is called Him. It is on Apple TV and Amazon. You can purchase it there. Tess Higgins, the writer of it, she stars in it. She's a producer on it. You jack of all trades on this movie. Tess, great job. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything in the future.
Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.